Amid ongoing conflict and daily challenges, President Volodymyr Zelensky made a significant announcement to the Ukrainian people. The F-16s are now in the skies of Ukraine. In a firm and fact-filled speech, Zelensky addressed the strategic and operational changes in the country's air forces, now utilizing advanced Western combat aviation. He highlighted that the nation was honoring the strength and skill of its compatriots, thanks to whom the sky over Ukraine remains purely Ukrainian. Zelensky emphasized that the enemy does not and will not dominate Ukraine's skies. Zelensky mentioned that the Air Force warriors had to face a significantly larger Russian air fleet, but managed to achieve their objectives, defend themselves, and destroy the occupier. In nearly 2.5 years of war, Ukrainian air forces have conducted 22,000 combat missions and continue to increase their power. He noted that Ukraine now has modern and effective air defense systems. Although these systems are not yet sufficient to completely protect the skies from Russian missiles and drones, Ukraine's air shield is already one of the strongest in Europe. The president highlighted that Ukrainians have proven they can shoot down even Russian ballistic missiles, which were previously considered unreachable by sky defenders. They have shown they can protect the purity of the Ukrainian sky against the enemy and safeguard the lives of the people, cities, and towns against Russian terror. In his speech, Zelensky called on the audience to honor the memory of each Air Force warrior who did not return from combat missions, sacrificing their lives for Ukraine, with a minute of silence. The president also noted that Ukraine is at a new stage in the development of its armed forces' air forces. Zelensky stated that much has been done for the Ukrainian Air Forces to adopt a new standard of aviation for Western combat aviation. He explained that since the beginning of the war, Ukraine has worked with international partners to protect the Ukrainian sky from Russian missiles and aircraft. Hundreds of meetings and negotiations have been held to strengthen aviation and air defense capabilities. In an increasingly complex global scenario, the strategic moves of Vladimir Putin and Volodymyr Zelensky are shaping the course of the war in Ukraine. In June 2024, Putin made a historic visit to Pyongyang, where he and Kim Jong-un forged a new strategic partnership, including a mutual defense agreement. This unexpected alliance with North Korea underscores the growing pressure on Russia, which is facing a prolonged and costly conflict in Ukraine. These events highlight the transformation of the conflict, which initially seemed to favor a quick Russian victory. Now, Putin's need to seek external support, including hiring African mercenaries and relying on North Korean munitions, starkly contrasts with the evolution of Ukrainian military capabilities. During the same period, Zelensky announced the integration of advanced F-16 fighter jets into the Ukrainian Air Forces in a significant speech for Air Force Day. Zelensky's speech, filled with gratitude and determination, highlighted the resilience of Ukrainian forces and the arrival of the F-16s as a milestone in the country's defense. The introduction of these jets represents a crucial strategic advancement for Ukraine, increasingly equipped to face aerial and ground challenges. While Russia struggles with resource and logistical shortages, Ukraine strengthens its defenses with the international support it has received. This contrast redefines the balance of power on the battlefield and reflects the determination of both sides to seek a decisive advantage in the war. The evolving strategies and alliances of each nation underscore the complexity and intensity of the conflict, highlighting the ongoing efforts of resistance and adaptation by Ukrainian forces under Zelensky's leadership. The FSB, responsible for internal security and specializing in espionage in former Soviet states, did not anticipate the resistance Russia would face in Ukraine. Despite increasing the size of the unit dedicated to Ukrainian affairs and receiving contradictory information before the invasion, there were failures in forecasting. For instance, the FSB conducted opinion polls and found that large segments of the Ukrainian population were prepared to resist the invasion. However, this information was not correctly assimilated, and the Kremlin continued receiving favorable reports. The idea that the Ukrainian population would welcome the Russians as liberators came from the FSB. Additionally, the notion that Russian paratroopers could create an air corridor by taking airports and bringing in reinforcements also originated from the FSB. Ukrainian intelligence detected joint planning between the FSB and Russian paratroopers. FSB agents were seen at the Rostomel airport shortly before the invasion. However, Ukrainian resistance prevented the capture of Rostomel. The FSB underestimated Ukraine's capacity to resist and its air defenses. None of the Russian air corridors were established. The situation worsened because Ukrainian security services underwent significant restructuring, with help from Western agencies like the CIA and MI6. The purge was so extensive that Zelensky even removed the head of the FDU, Ivan Bakanov, from his position in July 2022, despite being a childhood friend. The more capable SBU proved efficient against Russian spies. Russian military doctrine faced several difficulties. The lack of proper use of aviation against Ukrainian air defenses prevented Russia from achieving air superiority, despite its air force significantly outnumbering Ukraine's. Failures in implementing combined arms doctrine left Russian tanks vulnerable to ambushes without adequate infantry and aviation support. In contrast, the United States adapted its tactics following experiences in the War on Terror. American tactics involved turning tanks towards ambushes, using thick frontal armor to withstand attacks while infantry suppressed the ambush. Conversely, Russian tanks in Ukraine would stop and retreat when ambushed, lacking infantry support, causing tank columns to halt in the early days of the war and contributing to high Russian tank attrition rates. Besides tactical failures, the lack of proper maintenance of their mechanized assets was a critical factor. Thousands of Russian vehicles were lost due to abandonment or capture, not destruction or damage. Before the war, the Russians neglected basic maintenance tasks, such as securing spare parts for repairs. Activate the notification bell so you don't miss the next videos. Here are 2 important videos for you to watch. Take care and see you in the next video.